Good morning. So up here we have the dollar. If you watched ICT's market breakdown last night, which you should have if you're watching this, I'm just gonna regurgitate some stuff that he said, but I'm gonna say it because it kind of outlines my narrative today. So we had this daily fair value gap in the dollar. We're expecting it to run this high and dig more up into this weekly fair value gap. One thing he said he wouldn't be surprised if we came back down into this fair value gap right here, but he'd rather see it not happen. So up before like 10 minutes ago, we measured out the consequent encroachment of this wick, and the body of this candle was hovering just around consequent encroachment. So I was getting pretty optimistic that we might respect it and this consequent encroachment would hold off price. And if this level holds off price, then this fair value gap is looking safe and it'll be a breakaway gap and we'll have more aggressive upside on the dollar. But the market hasn't opened yet, but we are below it. Haven't tapped into that yet. And if we do tap into this fair value gap, I'm going to speak a little bit about how my plan is to go short today. But if we tap into this fair value gap, that plan isn't gone. It's just a lot stronger if we don't. So that's a dollar. I'll go down to the 4 minute or 4 hour just to give you an idea, better idea. So this is that consequent encroachment of the wick. So you can see we had this candle right here bounce off of it. Then we had this one close below it. So that's where we're at on the dollar. If we go over to NASDAQ on the daily. So I know the charts they have a lot on them. I'm sorry about that. We have so many new week opening gaps that are just like cluttering this whole area. It's very cluttered, but I think these levels are really important for at least this week, so I'm keeping them on. We're in this weekly fair value gap that we haven't left yet. It's created by these down close candles here on the daily. So I'm keeping that up on the chart right now. Let's go into the hourly, which removes that, cleans it up a little bit. So what I'm kind of hoping for today is something that happens similar to this Thursday-Friday action. So Thursday-Friday of last week, if you notice, we had this pre-market, like overnight London liquidity. What we did is we ran up, swept the buy side, and dropped. I'm hoping for something similar. Today, you can see we have this buy side liquidity. I think it's looking really clean. It's looking a little too clean on this 1 hour. So, and we're about to touch it. You can see we're just hovering below it. So I think I'd like to see us take this on NASDAQ and then send it lower, similar to what happened Friday of last week. I highlighted this breaker structure just in case NASDAQ starts to kind of climb at the open to give us a level to the upside. You have this high, low, higher high break. This higher high took liquidity. The breaker looks a little better on the 15 minute. You can see right here, it's that down close candle. So I'm hoping today to see something similar to Friday, where we just take this liquidity. Even I could see us taking this high too. I think it would be better if we didn't take this high, but take this liquidity, then have some kind of shift in market structure to the downside and target. We have this new week opening gap. This is the one that just formed. I'm sure we're going to have a opening range gap, so we'll target some of those levels. And then we have this low, which is looks like a daily low possibly. Yeah, so right there we have that last Friday low. So those will be our targets for going short. Let's go over to ES. ES is telling the same thing, not as clear as NASDAQ. The liquidity runs on NASDAQ always seem to be more obvious, but I feel like, at least for me, maybe it's because I've spent the majority of this year focusing on ES. I just don't have my finger on like the pullbacks and the entries on NASDAQ that much, I feel like. But I feel like it outlines sweeps of liquidity a lot better. For example, here we have these very nice equal highs. It's just going to run it. Like last week, it just ran it, came back down. It's a lot cleaner. Whereas ES, we have, so these overnight, it's pre-market London highs. They were a little bit lower. We took it a little earlier. I outlined it here as buy side, but what I did was I outlined this 15-minute fair value gap as well, and we're working up into the top side of that. You can see what we'll do is we'll watch to see how our bodies respect that. You can see this candle came up to the top of it perfectly to the tick. Our bodies are respecting it. This 15-minute fair value gap is also a part of this. It's the lower portion of this hourly fair value gap. So I think, the fact that we are in the top of this 15-minute fair value gap isn't too concerning for me, because the top of this 15-minute fair value gap is really the bottom 50% of this hourly fair value gap, as you can see here. So it's the same narrative on ES. We're just kind of using this fair value gap to also outline that narrative, whereas we didn't have this fair value gap on NASDAQ. But it's still the same narrative. We have a premium array. We have buy side resting above these, pre-market highs. So we're going to want to see a shift in market structure, just a reason to go short. I do not have much of a idea for longs. I wouldn't feel comfortable going long. I don't have anything outlined for longs right now. This would be like the next target for buy side. I don't really want to take that. If the market opens hot and starts running up, we'll probably sit in our hands. Something ICT talks about is when to trade. So that's a big thing, and that's something that I'm trying to reinforce a little more myself, especially on this channel. So Mondays are usually, especially Monday mornings, are usually better to just sit on your hands and watch, because in ICT smart money concepts, Mondays are usually used as an accumulation day. So we don't want to get caught in an accumulation, because that's implying that we will then get manipulated against and then used as liquidity. So Monday mornings are usually really good to just kind of sit out and watch. I will most likely be on in the afternoon. But if there's a really obvious trade, like the one I just outlined, like this downside idea, I will enter that. But only that. We had the Empire State Manufacturing Index red folder come out this morning at 8:30, so you can see that's kind of this run up. Let's go to the 15 or the 3 chart view. Yeah, so that's what we're watching going into this trading session. I think at 10:30 on the economic calendar, we have an orange folder event. So if you don't know this, the economic calendar is yellow, orange, red, low, medium, high impact. So we have a medium impact. FOMC member Harker speaks. I don't know who Harker is. I feel like people really only care or pay attention. I think some people probably pay attention to other people besides Jerome Powell, but I'm not going to pay too much attention, because those other Fed committee members speak like pretty often, so there'd just be too many events on the calendar, and like a lot of times you don't really see the market act off of them. Okay, so awesome, we're opening up. I like that we're shifting lower. I'm noticing how this low right here is also a low on the 5-minute. I like that. Again, I'm most likely going to wait until 10. I wouldn't be surprised if between 9:30 and 10 we, start seeing the bottom of this fair value gap. But I want to kind of regurgitating what I just said. Monday mornings are good sit on your hands days, especially since we had this like kind of run up so you don't know, like we could retrace back to the lower portion of this fair value gap and it would still just be, you could argue it's coming down to a discount to send it higher for a premium. Watching Nasdaq's making a higher high. Looks like it's the leader to the upside. Yes. Looks like it also wants to go and take those highs. Yeah, so we will be watching the opening. Okay, so if you can see this 5-minute chart on the bottom left, Nasdaq is just now running that buy side that I outlined, which was the London session highs. I think when I had the chart open a few minutes ago, we were right here, so we were just kissing the bottom of that buy side liquidity, but now at the open it is running and taking it. And I wish the chart kind of displayed over to this little window, but it was still pretty high. We had that breaker level up here. So in terms of the Nasdaq narrative, we could go a little higher and still have this downside. Oh, it's not too high. It's right here. Let's see. I'll watch Nasdaq this morning. Okay, so see how we behave after touching this breaker area. Again, this is a breaker on the 15-minute. You can see it's right here. It's a high, low, higher high from last Friday. I think getting above this, closing above this will definitely be a red flag for me at least. And not just a stronger reason to sit on my hands. For an upside level on ES, we have consequent encroachment on a weekly, which I like a lot for, I always like that level. I feel like we react well around weekly consequent encroachments. Okay, so we're up above this breaker structure for NASDAQ. So, there's clearly just this really strong upside right now. And like I said at the beginning of this stream, I don't have anything, any upside narrative right now. So we're just gonna watch. So in terms of upside, if you were to take a trade, I guess this would be the buy side liquidity you'd be targeting. And we could enter up to 50%. Yeah, so any entry would have to be below this white line for like a discount to sell into a premium. But that also, this feeds to our narrative of downside too. Because if we're, say, this low, this is the Friday low. If that is our sell side liquidity, then smart money would probably be accumulating at a premium up here to then go and sell it for a discount. Again, we also have this hourly SIBI right here for value gap. So I think I'm not gonna, maybe I'll highlight it because this breaker didn't do what we thought it would do. So we'll switch it up. We have this hourly fair value gap. And then let's do this. This is still a SIBI, so as long as price is, if this is holding down price, we still have a bearish narrative in play. You can see the 5-minute stopped right at 50% of that SIBI. See it? Love that. 5-minute stopped right at 50% of the body right here. The next 5-minute candle went right up, touched the top of it perfectly to the tick. So, like to see that. Let's see. Maybe I want to go over to ES now. Got the dollar. You can see it in this yellow line in the background. It's rising right here. I like that. I would want to see it come back up and take these highs. Remember, the dollar was right at around that consequent encroachment of the daily previous day's wick. So if we do start to see it go higher and take these highs, we can think that that consequent encroachment is holding off that candle, the dollar, the body of the dollar, the body of the candle of the dollar. I'd want to see it get below this swing low before I take any kind of short. I would like that. You'd have the high low, higher high with the break. You'd have a pretty strong swing low. Ooh, forgot to check the opening range gap. Here we go. Love to see that. Opening range gap that we haven't tapped into yet. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Again, so we're gonna want to see a lot of willingness to break this low. It'd be nice if the fair value gap formed while it was taking this low, and that's what we entered in on. Looks like the 15-minute candle body is respecting this hourly for value gap. See, sometimes this is why I like to trade ES more than NQ, because if you can see, NQ is not breaking this low at the 9:30 open, which is also something to watch right now as a possible discrepancy. Because I would like to see them both be taking that low. NASDAQ is starting to look a little heavier, which I like. It's getting closer to that low. Dollar making higher highs. So if we see a fair value gap form to the downside that overlaps with this low and takes it out, I would enter going short for a 2022 model entry. watching this SIBI specifically. I want to see how price behaves. Okay, so I'm paying attention to how this SIBI didn't hold off price to the downside. It's one of the reasons why I was waiting for this low to be taken, because I wanted that shift in the 5 minute, and it would have been the first 1 minute shift in market structure too. If the first candle came up into the spot fair value gap and just rejected it, and then we came down and made more SIBIs, that would have gave me confidence to enter short when we did break this low. Dollar, watching the dollar still. NASDAQ's getting closer to that swing low. I want to see the 5 minute. I want to see this wick on this 5 minute, the one that just printed. I want to see that hold price down. I want to see the consequent encroachment of it. Hold price down. And going with our bearish narrative, if this was an immediate rebalance on the 5 minute, come up to the bottom of that wick just to send it lower, I'd want this 5 minute candle that's printing now to be the one that sends it lower. So since I'm watching consequent encroachment, doesn't look like it's respecting it too well, so downside might not be in play right now. Yeah, I'm watching consequent encroachment of this 15 minute wick. Dollar looks like it's going up for a new higher high, which I like. I like how NASDAQ is now close enough to that 930 swing low where it looks like both indices could make that low at the same time. Looks like price is sending it higher for another high. If that's the case, then it was this down closed candle right here. Price respected it like an order block. You can see. Stopped right at mean threshold. This candle came down to mean threshold. Wicked past it, but the body's respected the 25%. Next candle touched mean threshold, body respected 25%. This candle, yeah. So this was probably an order block, a bullish order block. That's what's scathed off price to the upside. Watching NASDAQ. NASDAQ's 5 minute. If you can see, there's this fair value gap right here that it looks like. No, we didn't tap into it just yet. But downside narrative isn't out of the question yet. I'm actually, I wouldn't have wanted to see ES retrace this much. But yeah, so I'd have to see. I'd want this low to be taken out aggressively to think about entering some downside price, because we're moving kind of sideways here. I'm pretty sure that's what happened Friday morning too. It was something kind of similar. I think it was right at 10. It was right at 10. We saw a decent few candles. Yeah, so just to reiterate, it would have to be a pretty aggressive run below this low for me to be interested. It would have to convince me that it wants to go lower, because see how we kind of like chopped our way up. So we made this low, and then we just had a lot of candles that kind of like overlapped each other, back and forth, all the way up. If we had that back and forth action down and broke this low, that wouldn't be convincing enough for me, because I would think we are just kind of chopping. We're moving sideways. Like right now, it looks like we're moving sideways. So I would need to see an aggressive drop to convince me that we want to actually go lower. NASDAQ, you can see, it might be hard to see. I know these wicks are hard to see on this gray background. Tapped into that 5-minute fair value gap, SIBI, right there. The dollar making one more high. I'm being a little cautious of these 3 highs that really didn't do anything. I don't want that to be like a 3 drives pattern on the dollar, but the dollar is making higher highs still. Okay, so we're coming into this 10 o'clock hour. Let's see the silver bullet. I like silver bullets to the downside. I don't want to take any to the upside. I think downside, we have our opening range gap. We have an old new week opening gap. Downside fits our higher time frame narrative. We're wanting the dollar to go up. We have a bullish narrative on the dollar. Might not get it though. Looks like NASDAQ is toying with the idea of making a higher high on the 5-minute. Dollar looks like it's kind of curling. Let's go a little lower. For ES, this orange area is a daily fair value gap that I was hoping we wouldn't return into once we left it last week. But if we do see more upside, this high could be targeted. Let's see, something that's kind of good when you get these consolidations between 9:30 and 10 is when 10 o'clock hits. If you see an aggressive move, if you have like other validating factors like dollar dropping and stuff like that, then it could really just be tipping its hand to the draw on liquidity. But again, just to reiterate something I said earlier in the live stream at the beginning, ICT preaches Mondays. Mondays on weeks that don't have high impact news at the end. So if there's no like non-farm payrolls, CPI, FOMC, just a regular kind of low impact week, which this week's pretty low impact. We have a few things, but nothing like big. Like Powell speaks on Thursday. But we usually hold off on Mondays because Mondays are just days that are used. Smart money lets sentiment build on a Monday, and then it uses the rest of the week. So it might let sentiment build on a Monday, and then it'll use Tuesday to run against that sentiment, Wednesday to send it in the opposite direction, and then Thursday into Friday to kind of send it further into that direction. But that's like the profit taking leg of the distribution, where they offload their positions. So since this is a low impact week, going off of that theory, Monday is an accumulation day, and smart money just waits for sentiment to build. So we do not want to get caught up in that manipulation. And it's nice. It's good that nothing's really happening right now, because there's nothing that's even tempting us. So on the 15-minute, we got that last 15-minute candle closed above this hourly for value gap. Or no, it's a 15-minute fair value gap. So we had a 15-minute candle close above the 15-minute fair value gap. That makes me cautious. Makes me think that if there was a run lower below these lows, there's a chance that it could be returning down and using this as an inversion, and it's just sweeping these lows for liquidity to go higher. Dollar is looking like it wants to make a fourth high, but I don't really like how the dollar is making these shallow highs. That's usually kind of preemptive of a reversal. But if it starts to actually move higher, I will like that. Yeah, I'd need a few confirmations to go short. I need to see an aggressive moving dollar. I would need to see an aggressive dropping S&P. I'd want to see no SMT divergence between the S&P and NASDAQ. Dollar is showing some strength. It's taking out these highs like that. Let's see if that strength can continue. If it can be, antithesis can be mirrored in ES. The dollar is really pushing right now. I'm not seeing that be reciprocated. Whoa. What just happened? Oh, I do not know what I just clicked, but we entered a trade. It's okay. You can be pretty lenient on demo. Well, I don't want people thinking that we actually took a trade. What I was gonna say is I was gonna type this out and say be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I was gone. We had this little run up. Again, our narrative was looking for shorts, so I kind of stepped away because I saw the dollar moving upwards. It was making higher highs, and then also I saw this big candle printing. So I was like, okay, nothing. If it was the opposite, if the dollar was making this aggressive high and then there was some down close candles, I wouldn't have stepped away at a moment. Both the indices made that high. Yeah, it does look like we want to kind of revisit this area right here. If I was to take a silver bullet, I would probably do it right there. That'd be like a really short scalp. I'll try it just because the stop would be a tight. We could do a tight stop. Be a little scalp. And because we had this aggressive run up, we had 1, 2, 3, 4 up close candles. The 3 out of those 4 were pretty decent sized. Coming out of this consolidation, moving away. We didn't want to re-enter this opening range gap. I also put that order there because it looks like the dollar, if you do look at the dollar, it made that run up, looked like it took these highs, but then it didn't continue. And now we're actually kind of, looks like it's printing some low, it's going lower. So if the dollar started to break these lows and continue going lower, and we had a retracement back into this fair value gap, I would like that for a quick little scalp to the upside. But if it goes without us, I really don't care. This wasn't outline. I didn't outline any upside narrative this morning, so this is more of a kind of a little ad hoc scalp. But also the longer, I don't know, depending on how price prints up here, it could make me take this this order off. I'd rather take no trade than take an trade. Let's look at NASDAQ real quick. So NASDAQ's printing above this hourly fair value gap. You can see how we respected the levels pretty nicely. It came up a little bit above 50%, respected it, blew through it, came up closed on the outside, came down to this quarter mark to go higher. Dollar looks like it's dropping still. So yeah, on NASDAQ, I guess what happened right here is kind of my idea with this entry on ES. See how it had that run up and then it had that pull back into this fair value gap. So this was probably the silver bullet for NASDAQ if it continues to go higher. I don't know how many. Yeah, we already got 10 handles out of that. So that was a silver bullet for NASDAQ. It didn't play out on ES, it looks like. I thought this down close candle might be the retracement. And that's the tricky part is, ICT says it happens every day, every session, but it's not in every market. I don't think you'll hear him say every day, every market. It's different. Yeah. But that's fine. That is completely fine. Whoa. So, I'll take that off. This was the NASDAQ silver bullet. We did not take that trade, but that's cool. It's fine. Completely fine. I'm going to take this off. Yeah, so it'll probably be no trade this morning. Any scalp that I would have taken to the upside would have had this orange area as a target, and we're too close to it for me to want to take an entry. I could see it going as high as this buy side right here, which is also just about the bottom quarter, bottom 25% of this daily fair value gap. Yeah. Dollar broke this swing low. Looks like it's going to go lower. Which makes sense because it seems like price did want to go up. Dang. If only ES came back down into a fair value gap. Mike looking to short to 43.80. Nice. I wanted to see us break below these swing lows, and then I wanted to target some of the bottom of this opening range gap. I'm not too interested in shorting off of any of these levels, because I feel like, I don't know, not for me. I'm not seeing too much. Like, I see the levels, but sometimes there's like, these are the type of levels that like I'd want to use as targets more as like, and not entries. There we go. Yeah, so I think that buy side is the next level of interest to the upside. Probably go that buy side, then that 50% of this daily for value gap. Let's take a look at the daily. I was a little shocked that, I know this is a little messy right now. I was shocked that we opened with this gap up. That was a little annoying. So in ICT's review, he explicitly said the bottom 50% of this wick, he would not want to see price on the daily chart close above 50% of this wick. So I guess today will be an interesting day. I think it's not out of the cards yet. I was hoping that we would, I was hoping we wouldn't get this high, and kind of like I said earlier in the live stream, we would just sweep these overnight pre-market highs and then send it lower. I think it still could go into lower, maybe in like right before lunch, like the 11:50 macro into lunch. I could see it running down, because there's been no sell side taken like all morning. I think this was this London swing was like the raid on sell side, and then so ever since like 4:10 in the morning, sell side hasn't been taken. So there is a lot of sell side liquidity. I wouldn't be surprised if we dropped at some point today. I would also like that because that would get us back under this 50% line. If we close above this 50% level, that'll be annoying because going into the next few days, I will feel a little out of sync just because it will go against what my daily narrative has been. If we did close above that, I'd probably just start measuring out this SIBI, and I'd be watching, the consequent encroachment of the SIBI and how we treated it. Damn, it's aggressive run for buy side. That would have been a nice silver bullet if we were playing NASDAQ. Dollars dropping. Yeah, dollars dropping. In terms of, for NASDAQ, we have this weekly for value gap we're in. I'm also looking at this wick on NASDAQ. So this wick is similar to the wick that we were just talking about on ES. So we'll see how the daily candle wants to close. Does it want to close above 50%? Does it want to close below 50%? That'll probably determine what my mindset is going into tomorrow. I will come on for this PM session. I'm actually pretty excited about this PM session. We missed the silver bullet in the morning. It played out on NASDAQ, but I was watching ES and I was watching these two fair value gaps, and we never had a drop down into it. So never really entered, but exciting for the PM session. See what that brings. Price looked decent this morning, so hopefully we'll have some decent price in the afternoon. Okay, so we are running this swing high, this old swing high. I think that was Friday's high of the day on Friday. I feel like I'm a little nervous that the market might just go sideways until the Fed meeting next month. So they release the Fed funds rate comes out, let me see, November 1st. So I feel like we're close enough. And that's like, I don't know, you see all these headlines. You see a lot of headlines and it's like everyone's like, oh, like, well, the Fed might not hike rates this one last time, or they're expecting to start decreasing rates going into like 2024. And I feel like a lot of like sentiment is so like holding their breath on like what the Fed is doing. And then it's funny because like we're all like holding our breath, and then they do what they like said they, because like they're like pretty like, I think they're being really transparent and with like their plan and like their intentions, and they just regurgitate the same speech every time, and everyone's like holding their breath until the FOMC, and then they say the same thing that they've said the last like 4 rate hikes, and then everyone's just like does nothing about it because there's like no shock, and the market just like trends sideways, and then trends sideways up until the rate, and then like the rate happens, and then the market does nothing. And yeah, I'd be pretty annoyed if we close the daily this high. I'm also, another reason why I'm nervous about it is because we had the gap up. So we gapped up. It's not that easy to see. We had that gap up right here. If you look on the 5-minute, sorry, I know these new week opening gaps are getting very congested. But from last week to this week, we had this gap up, and I don't like how far we've come from the gap. Usually when you get this far away from like the new week opening gaps, that's kind of like the farther you get from it, the less likely it is to return back to it. So I guess that makes kind of sense, a lot of sense. But what I was hoping was when we took out these pre-market London highs, we'd be reversing back into it, because as long as we were like in this blue fair value gap, we were still kind of close to this gap. So it was reasonable to claim that it could come back down to it. But now that we're so far above this blue fair value gap, so far away from this our new week opening gap, the chances of returning to it today are a lot less likely. Which again, it's a little bit annoying because my narrative has been bearish. The little hope we have for downside is the fact that maybe on the daily we came up to take Friday's high. So right now what we're doing is we're taking some external liquidity, and that'll be enough buy side for them to then send it lower. Yeah, but if we take this high, I don't know what the fuck's happening. It's definitely not downside at that point. Probably going to take this off. This is a 15-minute fair value gap from this morning. I'll take that off because we never got that entry. Cool. So yeah, for those watching, I will not be taking a trade. I'm just gonna kind of hang out until for the next 10 or 15 minutes just to watch price. One thing too is when you see a run like this and there was no sell side taken, or like really even any kind of like PD arrays that like respected the upside, like especially on the 15-minute here, if you can look. So we took sell side at 4 a.m. this morning, but after that, you know, we kind of had this like meander up because the market wasn't open. But when the market opened at like 9:30, it's not like we had this like structure that was like looking like it was like a bullish price run. We just had this run up here. Even on the 5-minute, it kind of just like shot up, melted up. Like it wasn't even like there was a sweep of liquidity anywhere in here to then go higher. It just went higher. So what I see in that is just a lot of generation of sell side, because it's all resting there still. None of it was taken. And you have all these people that were probably trying to go long in here. I mean, we almost went long. Then you run all the way up to this buy side. So when I see that, like no sell side was knocked out, and we just run straight to buy side. The little hope we have is that it was running up to this buy side, and that was like the initial. That was the sweep of liquidity to then send it to the target. So I say all that to say that we do have some hope that this was the liquidity that was taken, and later in the day we will see these lower prices. But we've already moved so far away that we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. Even if we started to move aggressively lower here, I probably wouldn't want to enter short just because we ran up so much. It's just better to wait for the PM session. Cool. I'm going to log off.